All right, let's get started today. So today's message is titled Longing for Eternity. Okay? Can we get everyone in the room? That's going to help me with this next part that I need to do. So, like Ayong, everyone else that needs to come in, can we have everybody come in as much as possible? Because that's going to help me to do my illustration. Okay? All right. But everybody else in this room, if you can stand up. If you're watching, I'm sorry, stand up. You gotta find someone around you or talk to someone around-ish. Okay, so find a partner, find a partner, find a partner, find a partner, okay? Or find groups of 3 or 2, okay? All right, find a partner, be safe, stay socially distanced in an appropriate way. If you're in the same family, it's fine, because you'll live together anyway. Okay, so stay standing, stay standing, stay standing. Find your person. Okay. All right. So, okay, good. Ion, come in. Yes, that will help. Okay. So, I want you to think about, gotta think hard, okay? The very first memory that you have of your entire life, like your first, like, legit memory that you can remember, okay? Think about it. Usually, honestly, guys, the first memory is either traumatic or like a really big deal. That's how like it stays in your brain, okay? So tell the person next to you that you've partnered up with what that memory is and how old were you. You don't have to tell all the details, but whatever you're comfortable sharing. So tell that person right now, go, okay? Your first memory that you remember, maybe you're 10, maybe you're 3, whatever it is. Tell the person what it is and how old you were when that happened, okay? All right, so tell that person. I'll give you a second. Okay? Keep going, keep going. Keep sharing. Okay. I think we're mostly done sharing. Okay. So take a seat back in your seat that you were at. If I can have everyone stay in the room, though, that needs to be in here. Can I have the rest of everybody else come in? Okay, good. Awesome. Okay. So, like I said, most everyone's first memory is either like really, really funny or like really sad. That's why it stays in your brain. Okay, so I'll share my first memory. How old were most of you with your first memory? You don't remember? Like, were you in preschool? 2? Wow, that's pretty amazing. Like, anyone else, like, older than that? 3, 4, 5? How old were you with your first memory so young? You don't remember? Were you, like, in preschool? Think so, preschool? Okay. Wow, Nick, 2 is pretty amazing. Okay, so I think I was, like, 3 or 4. I was in preschool. And I only spoke Korean, right? Like, my parents immigrated. I only spoke Korean. And so I don't know why no one thought to teach me how to ask where is the bathroom in English. Like, I'm not sure why no one thought of that, okay? But I went to preschool the first day, and I did not know how to ask, like, where is the bathroom? And, like, sometimes I'm like, why didn't you just look for it? But I was 3, okay? So, like, I don't know. I didn't know where the bathroom was. And I also don't know why the teachers didn't see me like doing this and like not wonder that I had to go to the bathroom. But I remember I just kept saying, 화장실 가야 돼, like in Korean. And I don't know what it was, but nobody really understood what I was doing. And I remember I just like super peed all in my like dress, like my preschool dress, and I was so embarrassed. And my mom had to come because like I think she forgot to bring a change of clothing. I don't know. It was like the worst first day of school experience ever. So that's like stuck in my brain. Like I remember that day, and I remember that night like going, I guess I must have been like so traumatized that I fell asleep like the rest of the day. And then I woke up to my mom telling my grandma what had happened, and I was like super embarrassed. That's my first memory. So most of our first memories are either funny or like dangerous or, you know, one of those things. Okay, so now you don't have to tell your partner this one, but I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think in your future, I don't know how many years, 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever years from now, imagine yourself in the future, okay? What do you look like? Who are you with? What are you doing? What's your job? Are you traveling? Do you have a family? Are you married? Like, what does don't even overthink it. Just, what comes to your mind, right away, okay? Okay, open your eyes. So that's your future, okay? Whatever it looks like, all your wildest dreams come true. So all of us as human beings are bound by time, right? We're all born, and one day we're all going to die. And the life that we live in between is the life that we have. Now, some people, their orientation to time is different. So some people, like my husband, he is very, past-oriented. So he's thinking about, the past, what happened, what he could have done differently. He's always thinking about, the past, okay? Some people are very present-oriented. The past is the past. Can't change that. Future, can't control that. So all I have is today. So, live for today, Some people are like that. They have a very present focus. They only see, what's in front of them. Other people, like me, I am very future time-oriented. So I'm always thinking about the rest of the day. In my mind, I always have a running schedule of, okay, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, tomorrow I'm going to do this. Every time, I'm, always planning out my whole week, in advance. That's just my thing. I'm a very future-oriented person. Now, none of those things are good, bad, or wrong. Just each of us have a certain orientation to time, okay, past, present, or future. But no matter what your orientation to time is, the fact is, all of us as human beings are bound by time. We're all bound by time. You could have the wildest dreams in the world, but you're still bound by time. You only have a certain amount of time to make that happen. We're doing our series right now, right, on the attributes of God, of who God is. And today we're exploring the eternity of God, how God is eternal. He's eternal. This is a really important characteristic of God to know because this applies to how we understand God and time in our lives. So how many of you ever asked these questions? You pray a prayer, God, please help me this or please do this, and then it doesn't happen. And you're like, God, why didn't you, listen to me? Why didn't you answer my prayer? Or, where are you? Why am I waiting forever? Who's ever thought those things? All of us, at some point, have probably thought something like that. Welcome to the club. You are human, okay? That's what it means to be human with a God who is eternal. Remember, this whole series, the idea is that the more we know God, the more we can rightly know ourselves. And the more we know God, we realize, I'm not God. He is God. And that really applies for today. Okay, so another example. Imagine yourself standing on a huge piece of paper, okay, like a scroll, just whoosh, it rolls out, okay? And imagine this piece of paper going forever in both directions, forever and ever, this way and that way. It's just forever. This paper has no end. And you're standing on it, okay? And you have this pencil in your hand, and you draw this line, on the paper, start and end. That's what time is like for us. All of eternity, all that God knows, our life is a line, a pencil line on this huge, long piece of paper that is eternity. Remember how a few weeks back I talked about how God has no birthday? There's no start for him, and there's no end for him. All of us who are created have a beginning and an end. In the same way, God doesn't exist within time. He doesn't exist within time. He made time. Okay? Because God forever was, he forever is, and he forever will be. So God is all at the same time. He has lived all of your yesterdays, all of your todays, and all of your tomorrows right now. He knows it right now. It's kind of mind-blowing to think about. He knows exactly what you will do in 5 years. He knows how you're going to die. He knows everything, and he's already lived it. To him, it's already happened. His sense of time is so different from ours. When you look at Isaiah 46, 9 to 10, it says this, I am God, and there is no other. It says, I am God. There's none other like me, declaring the end from the beginning. Whenever we're trying to know God, all knowledge of God starts there. I am God, and there is no other. That's where all knowledge of God starts. When we have questions like, God, why isn't this happening? Like, why isn't this working? We often want an answer. We want God to be like, okay, here's a thing, da-da-da-da-da. Reality is that God is not like, we have to start, our starting point is I am God and there is no other. So all of your questions about God and time, it starts with that God is God and there is no other. Whenever we get upset about things not happening the way we want, whenever we get all messed up about that, do you know what that usually means? It usually means that we think we're in control. And so we want things to happen the way that we want. And when they don't, we often get upset because we think we are in control. See, that's why all things with God and time start with that knowledge. I am God and there is no other. I am God and you are not. He is God and I am not. That's where all of it starts. God dwells in eternity and time dwells in God. Like I said, God has already lived all of your yesterdays, all of your past. He was with you in all of your present, and he's with you in all of your future. He already knows all of it right now. So like when we're like, oh my gosh, it's taking so long, to him, it's different because he's already lived all of it, and he knows all of it. Like when you think about that, like God knows everything. He knows like my whole future already right now. There's actually a lot of comfort in knowing that. There's a lot of like, oh, why am I worrying about things? I don't need to because he's already seen everything. Okay, I want you to think back to middle school, okay? Think back to middle school. You know the most embarrassing school pictures are usually from middle school, okay? Or if you're middle school, my two middle school girls in the back, okay, think back to elementary school, okay? So think back to middle school or elementary school and think about like what was your greatest worry at that age, okay? At like 10 or like 11 or 12. What was your biggest worry? What was the thing you stressed out about the most? I have a distinct memory. So back in the day, okay, when I was in middle school, that's when like Google came out. Okay, like that's how it was. All right, so I was in middle school and no one had laptops then. Like that was like super expensive. So we just had like a home computer. Have you guys seen those computers? Like it's a box. Okay, you know what I'm talking about? Like it's not even a flat screen, it's like a box. Okay, like a box and then another box. And I was like typing up some essay for my English class in 6th grade. And I was almost done. And for some reason, the computer died. And I had not saved it. And I remember distinctly, I like had a meltdown. Like I was like, I threw myself on the bed and I was like crying. I was hysterical, like all of it again. And my dad came in, he was like trying to calm me down, tell me it's not a big deal. Like, you know, later you'll look back and you'll laugh at this. And I remember being like so mad at him because it was such a big deal at that time. But it's true. Looking back, was that the worst moment of my life? No, it wasn't. But in that moment, it felt like the worst moment of my life. The hindsight is 2020, right? Like when we look back, like it makes so much more sense. It's not actually that big of a deal. And God has the greatest picture of all. He sees it all, and he knows it all. He knows exactly what will happen. And the greatest thing about that, do you know what that is? It's not that he's just like a dictator, he knows everything. It's that he loves you. He knows everything, and he loves you. He cares for you 1,000,000 times more than whoever cares for you the most in this world. That's how he loves you. He not only knows your whole life, he cares for your whole life. In Psalm 90, verses 1 and 2, it says this. Lord, through all the generations, you have been our home. Before the mountains were born, before you gave birth to the earth and the world, from beginning to end, you are God. I love what it says there. God is our home. Like, home should be the safest, most comfortable place in the whole world. Now, for a lot of people, that's not the case. Home isn't very safe. And it's not like a peaceful place. Maybe your room is, or some other place, but there is a place where you feel the most safe in this world. And the most safest place, like God describes himself as our home. Like when you get home, I have a question, okay? When you get home, what do you guys do first? What do you guys do first? You guys like, obviously all of us, most of us are Korean, take off our shoes, okay? Like what do you guys do? When I go home, the first thing I do is change. Like I don't care what I'm wearing, like I need to get comfortable, okay? You know what I mean? Like I just need, it's not pajamas. I call them my home clothes, okay? My like home ajma clothes. I just need to be really comfortable. So I didn't know that not everybody does that. Like, so when I was living with roommates in college, like it was so weird to me that they would just be in their like outside clothes all day. Like that was so strange to me. Like, and they thought I was strange that I would have like 3 outfits a day. Like my outside outfit, my home outfit, and my pajamas. Like that was so strange to them. But I just want to be comfortable. Like home is where you should feel like super at peace, right? Like that peaceful feeling, that safe feeling, times that by like 1,000,000, and that's what it feels like to know God and to like be known by God. Like when I pray, I don't always feel that. But there are moments like when I'm praying or I'm worshiping even now, like during our worship, and there's just like a moment where I know like this is what I'm made to do. Like I'm made to worship. I'm made to know God. So how does knowing that God is eternal, how does that help us as human beings live for him? Remember the phrase for this series. The whole series, the same phrase is this. God is God and I am not. Okay, repeat after me. Ready? Begin. God is God and I am not. Okay? God is God and I am not. If you have that in your mind your whole life, you will live a good life, I promise. Okay? This phrase teaches us 2 important truths today. The first is this. God is eternal and I am not, right? The first thing is life is so fleeting. It's so short. Like when you have a really healthy view of eternity, like that white piece of paper going forever, and that your life is a tiny line on it, when you have a healthy view of that, not paranoia, okay, but like a healthy view of like, my life is but a breath. When you understand that, it helps us to live a lot more like rightly, a lot more like in our heads like correct, you know? Like, you know, like a crisis happens and that's when you realize what's really important in life. Like, that's what it does when we have a healthy view that our life is short. In Psalm 90, verse 10, it says this. It says, 70 years are given to us. Some even live to 80, some longer. But even the best years are filled with pain and trouble. That's what the psalmist is talking about. And the older we live, this is true. Like, the longer we live, like, life is hard. Life is hard. And it's not guaranteed to be very long for all of us. It's gone, like, so fast. Everyone in this room, everyone, is under 40. Okay? Everyone. So all of us still have a really puffed up view of time. We think we have forever to live. You know, I think that too. I think, like, I have so many years to grow old, be cute, old, like, up kind of couple with my husband. Like, I got so many years to do that. That's what I think. But who knows, right? Like, none of us know. None of us are guaranteed that life. The more and more we live, the more and more we realize life is short. So how I live counts. In verse 12, just 2 verses down, it says this. Teach us to realize the brevity of life, how short it is, so that we may grow in wisdom. Having a healthy view of eternity. This life is not forever. The things you care about right now, you probably won't care that much about it in 20 years. Or maybe you will. Life is really short. Whenever things get really hard, I always ask myself, if I was on my deathbed right now and I knew I was going to die, would this circumstance, would this person who makes me annoyed, would would this really matter? Would I remember this at the end of my life? And sometimes, yes, it is. So that's important. But most of the time, no. I'm not going to think about what that girl said to me, like when I was 12. Like, I'm not going to think about that when I'm dying, right? So it kind of gives you perspective. Like, life is bigger than that. Don't waste our lives on things that don't matter. That's the first thing. But the second thing is this. When we know that God is eternal and I am not, this helps me realize because I'm made in God's image, right? And he is an eternal God. Therefore, we carry within all of our hearts a longing for eternity. Every one of us. You carry in you a longing for eternity. That's why all of us ask the questions. Like, universally, they've done that, like, research about this. Like, whatever culture, even if you're, like, in the middle of the Amazonian forest and you're, I don't know, you like, wear leaves for clothes, I don't know. Like, everyone around the world has had this thought. What am I made for? What is the purpose of life? That's what makes us human. That's what makes us different from the other animals that God has made. Like, we think about, what am I made for? Do you know why? Because God has placed a yearning and a longing for eternity in your heart. Can we go to Ecclesiastes 3:11? Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart, but even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. Can we leave this slide up here for a second? Okay, there's two really important parts. Can we leave that verse slide up there? Thanks. Okay, I love this. He says God has planted eternity in the human heart. Eternity in the human heart is planted in each of us. But at the same time, even though that's in us, we still cannot see eternity the way he does. We can't see it that way. All of us have that longing. All of us want to know, what is the purpose of my life? When I die, what's the whole point of this? Like, is there something after this? Every single person asks that question. Yet, we can't see the end. We don't know what's going to happen. You know what? He does. Because God is eternal. He knows. He knows the sum of your life and what it's worth. And let me tell you, he does not judge the way that we judge our lives. And he said all the time, the greatest is the least, and the least is the greatest in God's kingdom. Everything is different. He judges things totally different than we do. Eternity is rooted in your heart. Do you know why? Because that longing brings you to find and to search for the one who is eternal. And the only one who is eternal is our God. He's the one that's eternal. That God who set eternity in your heart is the same God who also made a way for you to spend eternity with him. He didn't just put this longing in your heart and like dangle it there just for fun. He gave you the answer too of how to be with him eternally and forever. Our last verse for today, 2 Timothy 1 verse 10, it says this. Jesus, our Savior, he broke the power of death and illuminated the way of life and immortality through the good news. Do you know what the greatest fear is for mankind? It's death. Most people, that's their greatest fear, is death, of just not existing forever anymore. It's like the weirdest feeling. But this is why we have hope, because Jesus took death and he broke it. And he was like, no power over you anymore. The God who put eternity in your heart also made a way through Jesus for you to spend eternity with him. That is why we have hope. So what is the takeaway for today? 3 things. Number 1, God is eternal and I am not. God is eternal. He's the one who made time. He's not bound by time. He's already lived all of your past, present, and future. When we're stuck in something and we're waiting for something and we're discouraged and it's hard, remember, he already knows all things. And that is why, number 2, we can trust him. We can trust him because he knows it. We can't control it. He knows it all. And not only that, but he loves and he cares for you. He knows that we're finite creatures who get super messed up when things don't happen the way we want. He cares about every detail. The other day, I had some Sunday school kids ask me a question like, what are you supposed to pray for? Can you pray for like things like, God, can that person be nice to me? Or like, can you pray for small things like that? And I said, yeah, of course. Like, God cares about the details of your life. He cares about every feeling on your heart that you don't even know you have. He cares about, like, when we're upset or when we're depressed or whatever it is, he cares about you in that place. And he's with you in that place. He cares about all things. And lastly, although our lives are but a breath, God has placed a longing for eternity in your heart. And that longing leads to the one who is eternal. Can I have the praise team come up? Guys, how we live on this earth matters. How you live matters. Now, what you believe determines your eternity, but how you live determines the quality of your eternity. Guys, what we do today matters. The choices you make today matter. It either brings you closer to God or it brings you further away from God. And yet, even though we make choices that bring us further away from God, he always, always wants us and brings us back to him. A lot of people get super discouraged living for God because things don't always work out. Because we face suffering and things are hard. We get discouraged. I get discouraged. I had a really hard week and I was super discouraged. And as I was preparing this message, I felt like God was saying to me, hey, you see things a certain way, but that's not how I see it. I am the eternal one. I know all things. And what may seem to you like you're waiting forever, I have a good plan and a good purpose. And in my time, I will release things to happen. Can we all stand? We're going to sing this song, Yes, I Will. And the verse says, it goes like this. I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. In the waiting, the same God who's never late is working all things out. And I love what it says there. He is the eternal one. He knows all things. He knows all things. Can we take a few moments right now to pray? I don't know what struck your heart today, or maybe nothing really did. That's okay too. I believe God's planting seeds in your heart. But maybe something in your heart is like, yeah, I've been waiting for this, or I've gotten so discouraged because God's not doing this. If you have that, can we come to God in prayer right now? Come to God and say, God, this really bothers me. This is really hard. I'm super discouraged. It's hard to follow you because of this and this and this. Have real talk. Just be real honest with him and just talk to him because he cares for you. I'll spend a few moments praying together. Jesus. And we believe that the one who is eternal, that you know all things. And God, the things that I don't know yet, the things that I'm holding on to, God, you see it all. You see it all. And you love us. You love us, God. God, you love us and you know all things, God. God, I ask that you would be with us. You would move in our hearts, God. God, would you stir our hearts to know you more, to love you more? Yes, Jesus, God, I ask that right now you would cause hearts in this room to stir and to speak with you. God, for you have placed a longing for eternity in every single heart. God, I ask that that would drive them, push them to seek you, the one who is eternal, the one who knows all things and sees all things. Let's sing this song together. But every day that you give us breath, every day that we have to live, but even though we're waiting, even though we're not sure, we will always declare that you are good. We will bless your name. We will sing for joy. We know that you will not fail us, that in the waiting is when you refine us and make us more like you. So God, we will not be discouraged. We will not complain. Instead, we will choose to look at the one who is eternal, who knows and sees all things and still cares for us. God, we love you. Help us to have that kind of perspective this week as we worship you and live for you. We love you. We pray all these things in your son's precious name. Amen.